So recently I made a video about Alexandra Kollontai's takes on love and relationships, and I gave a very brief overview. And as I was editing this video and rewatching what I said, of course I want to elaborate. In case you didn't read the little piece, which name I can't remember, it has to do something with Eros or whatever you pronounce this like, I'm not sure. The way she talked about medieval relationships, I think, by the way I worded it, it sounded kind of like it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, the kind of love they practiced. Like I mentioned, I said you could love somebody spiritually and didn't necessarily have to have a sexual relationship with them. But that was mostly concerning knights, and the whole thing about knights having this dame who they strived for, who they could never actually have a true relationship with. It was more of an idea of this perfect woman that they created in order to, and the church created that. It was or at least it was perpetuated by the church, supported by the church, because those aforementioned knights, they would already have a wife and they would have children and whatnot. They would have mistresses, they would engage in rape and all kinds of terrible behaviors. However, they would still be encouraged to have this damsel of their heart or whatever, to kind of to write poems for, to do heroic deeds for, and in the name of. And one of the examples was the mother of Jesus, Mary, was one of the popular icons to be spiritually in love with. So that was definitely not the kind of love that should be promoted or that is healthy. And any kind of intimate relationship with one's wife and friendship with one's wife was kind of laughed at and mocked. Like, it was considered stupid for the nobility to be in love with their own spouses. So, and later, Kollontai talked about how the bourgeois society was changing so rapidly, so it needed a new family unit in order to preserve the capital. So a wife and a husband would have to be companions in multiplying and preserving the family capital. So this idea of the family unit consisting of a husband and a wife and their children all working together towards accumulating more riches, was very widely spread during the early bourgeoisie periods, and the emergence of the Industrial Revolution also kind of supported that. And Kollontai criticizes harshly the more modern, to her at least, the 19th century approach to love, which was kind of in line with the bourgeois approach that the husband and the wife were kind of isolated from the rest of the society and they just needed to accumulate more stuff. And that was the ultimate goal of the family. And of course, the religion didn't help, because religion started condemning all kinds of relationships that were outside of this type of a family that later was called a nuclear family. But this kind of a family unit was greatly encouraged earlier than the 20th century, and obviously the historical details will need to be verified on this. But this is what Kollontai was talking about mostly, and the way she envisioned the new, after the revolution, the new kind of a relationship. She doesn't give you any kind of a prescription, because she was a Marxist, so she knew that the times would kind of dictate, the conditions would dictate how the relationships were going to form. But she definitely supported examining the relationships between people very carefully, because she saw great potential for camaraderie and for the common strive, the collective strive for the improvement of everyone. And she thought that individuals needed to be in relationships, obviously, and it was good for their mental health, for their overall health, and for their collective strength and collective achievement. So she didn't talk too much about what an ideal Marxist relationship, or a communist rather, relationship would look like. She also talked a little bit about prostitution and sex work in general, and we see the continuation of this discourse up until now. But she did talk about how the commodification of women was the product of the capitalist relationships, that it wasn't necessarily bad to have sex workers and prostitutes. She didn't exactly say it this way, but she didn't condemn that labor as anything special. She did talk about the liberation of the women, of course, and how the women needed emancipation, obviously, and needed to be an integral part of the society of the time. So it is interesting to me to see how the discourse hasn't really changed much since then. Like, we still talk about the exact same thing, the nuclear family, the Protestant view or the Christian view of relationships and monogamy and whatnot. So if you read this work by Kollontai, let me know what you think, and we can keep this conversation going.